Live here.
Live!
But we don't have to necessarily know what that means.
What's the someday of black?
I don't
there's
know
a
that we
reason
want to-
this story happens now.
Ladies and gentlemen, the movie writes itself. Ooh.
I'm still streaming. How do I stop streaming? No!
Hello.
He was making a weird sound. Can you hear that?
I can hear that.
I don't know what's going
I'm
on.
also getting an echo. But
I don't know
weird.
what's going on. I'm going to leave and join. Okay?
Oh, okay. All right.
Just
Well,
riff,
I'll
just-
do a little,
just
I'll do a
ramble.
little vamp intro.
Ramble.
All right, I'm going to ramble. Okay, here we go. All right, welcome to Ben and Jake Write a Movie live here today on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And yesterday, I said that we were going to only do YouTube. And my wife made a very good point that that was a bad idea. And, you know, Jake even asked, why are we doing that? Well, the reason I was going to do it is because YouTube has much better way of tracking how many people are watching, how many people are not watching, and when people are watching. The live stream analytics for Facebook just aren't very good. But it's better for us to have engagement, and we'd rather have you here with us while we're streaming. And then, you know, most of our views actually come after the live stream anyway. So what we'll do is we'll live stream to Facebook and everywhere. And then we'll probably post the link to the show on YouTube to try and continue to bring people over to our YouTube channel. And Jake is back.
Hello. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened there. My computer was just having a complete
No problem.
I just can't deal with the pressures of life.
So I was just telling our audience that I made a decision without discussing it with you that we are live streaming today on Facebook and on Twitter and on YouTube. And the reason for that is because honestly the engagement while we do it live is better. Even though the analytics are terrible, we still get most of our views post stream. So what we'll probably do is only have the post stream video on YouTube, and we'll just post a link on Facebook and Twitter. But at least during the live session, you can watch it on all three platforms.
Totally. For example, Leandro is watching us live on Facebook right now.
Yeah. Hi, Leandro. How are you today? It is 2:00 p.m. here in Los Angeles on the West Coast.
And also it's 2 p.m. in Camas, Washington. Because we're on the same
time. But who knows? People could be all over the world watching.
Well, also there's been the debate as well, even in Washington, I know in California as well, about whether or not we'll continue to do daylight savings. So in theory, California can pass it and Washington might not.
Well, some people want to actually keep daylight savings time
yes.
and get rid of the other time.
Whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Weird to me because I would rather keep the other time and get rid of daylight savings time. But anyway, it's all very confusing.
Very confusing.
I don't understand. California actually did pass the initiative years ago, and somehow the state legislators have just never enacted the will of the people. I don't know what the hell that's all about.
Isn't it weird to think that? I mean, I think Oregon and Washington passed it as well. They did it as like one block. But wouldn't it be weird if you had a state vertically above another one, potentially in a different time zone?
Well, there are states that don't do it. And I think I want to say like maybe Arizona doesn't do it or Nevada doesn't do it.
Yeah,
and it is like you can cross, even though you're supposed to be in the same time zone, you're at different times because of daylight saving time.
Weird.
It's bizarre. I don't understand people.
I understand.
But rather than continue to vamp, I had a topic that I'd like to talk about.
Great. Let's jam. Let's jam on your topic. We're going to do 15 minutes. Limit it to 15 minutes.
15
I think it was
minutes.
good yesterday. Yeah.
Yes. See how serious Jake gets? He's like, no more than 15 minutes.
And I will be a clock Nazi about this.
He is. Don't use that word, though.
Okay. Just a regular Nazi.
Yeah, exactly. Don't use the word clock. So the topic actually comes out of what we were just talking about before lunch, and that is the idea of trying new things and taking risks. It applies to, I think, both craft as well as process. And I think it's important as a screenwriter, whether you're new and starting out or whether you've been doing it for 20 years, to continually look for ways to improve your process, to improve your craft, to stretch yourself. Not everything you try will work.
Right.
But what do you think about that, Jake?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think the great benefit of working in a creative environment is you can constantly try new things. And we have constantly tried new things in the way that we work. And what we were discussing about before lunch, wasn't it? Was about how can we find a way to be more efficient? It was born out of a question of efficiency. How can we as a partnership be more efficient? I think we've both had feelings this year, kind of going, "Oh, could we have done a little bit more? Could we have created more material?" I don't like to use the word churn out because it kind of feels like it's just cheap, like just knocking out scripts.
Be more prolific.
But yes, how can we be more prolific? So, for those of you who aren't familiar with the way that Ben and I work, we are doing it for you live.
Right. Yeah.
But the way we work is we come up with ideas together. We workshop them together. That means kind of talk around them, settle on something. Once we've settled on something, then we continue to build that out. Then we will write an outline together. And that, of course, is where we are in the process. What do we normally do after that, Ben?
After that, we would kind of break that outline up into usually about 3-page sections, but we do it more on story than pages. So it's like short sequences. And then we would go away and you would write a sequence and I would write a sequence. And then we would send those pages to the other person, allowing that person to then rewrite those sequences in whatever fashion they want. And then we would, after that, come together, combine those sequences into the pages as they are. And then we would continue to polish them so that we could kind of create a singular voice after that work. And
by the time we've written that kind of first draft, we've almost done kind of 3 drafts on it, because I've done a pass on it, Ben's done a pass on it, and then we've done a combined pass on it together. And our question is what are each of our strengths?
Right.
And I think we have different strengths. And I think it's absolutely right. It's not to say that one is better than the other. They're just different. I am far more the kind of greyhound who's chomping at the bit, eager to get out and just get something out on the page. And Ben is more, I would say, considered. He pauses and thinks about things perhaps more than I do. And takes a little bit more time with it. But ultimately, and we were talking about this earlier, is the adage is true that you always say about writing, that I think 80 to 90% of writing is rewriting. And yet you can only rewrite what you've written.
Correct.
So one of the things that we discussed was how can we make best use of my eager to type words like Jim Carrey at the typewriter, and how then you can use your skills of and I think what you said earlier was correct, which was that I think one of your great strengths lies in rewriting that, which again, it's not to say you don't do great first draft stuff. I think you do great first draft stuff. Absolutely. And also sometimes that takes a little longer. And that's, it's
more about efficiency than quality. That we're not talking about who's better at each.
Totally.
We're talking about who's more efficient in order to be prolific. There's a specific goal. Right. We live in a world right now, Hollywood, of selling scripts that are fully packaged and ready to go. That takes an enormous amount of time. We are out with a script right now that we started the new process. It's an old project that actually we sold way back when, but we started the new process about a year ago.
Yeah.
And it has only just gone out to market now. And that didn't even require a first draft because we already had the first draft.
Right.
We have another project that it's been 2 years. We have a TV project that's been over a year. So, I think that in order to stay in the game, in order to stay on top of your career, you have to have lots of things going at the same time because they're all going to be at different stages. You're going to be packaging one thing, you're going to be going out to town with the other thing, you're going to be rewriting another thing. And the only way to do that, if you're trying to do original material, is to have lots of original material.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely right. So I think it's about how we can, like in an ideal world, I think we'd write 4 or 5 scripts a year.
Oh God, yeah.
Wouldn't it be amazing to, at the end of a year, have 4 new spec scripts? And it's,
Yeah, I would be very happy with 3.
I'd be very happy with 3.
That's only because we like to vacation.
Totally.
If we were writing all 12 months, then I think 4 would be reasonable.
Yeah.
But you and I like to and you have to. You have to.
We have families.
Otherwise, you can't just work the whole every day of the year. Like, I'm sorry, but you need to have life in order to fill your creative life.
It's very
important. Live in order to be creative. I truly do believe that.
I'm a believer in that too.
Yeah.
Like, I don't live to work, or I don't work to live. Hang on, wait, what is it? What I'm trying to say?
You don't work to live.
Yes.
You live and you work.
Oh, you know what I'm trying to say. I just want to work all the time.
Yes. No. Point is, but yes. So the idea of the topic being trying new things and taking risks is that we literally this morning we're talking about trying a completely new way of working, which we've never done before, and it's kind of scary actually. And it involves Jake taking the lead with the initial first pages because he's got that kind of real, like, I'm going to bust this out attitude, and me then going and doing the rewriting of looking at those initial pages and going, okay, yes, this is all on the page now. Can I see it for what it is and do that next draft?
Yeah.
And then once a whole draft is done, coming back and polishing it together. So we still have 3 drafts at the end, to be clear. And I think that always makes our first drafts extremely strong.
Yes.
But this is a bit of a new approach. I've never done this before. I've never just rewritten pages and not been the first writer on those pages. I mean, it's weird because I guess technically I do half of it when we swap back and forth.
That's right.
But I do still feel like half of it I am writing the first. So it's not like that process. But I think it's a good test. Look, this whole thing, this podcast is us trying something new. And taking a risk and going, who knows what the heck's going to happen with this spec script?
I know.
Is it going to be good? And is it going to be bad?
Might. I mean, it genuinely might be awful.
It might be awful.
We might be very publicly crashing and burning, but also I do think there's benefit in that to show people that sometimes that's what happens, and and that even at a professional level, that happens.
I'm sorry. Even the very, very, very best writers or very best directors or very best actors do not always do the best. They all shit the bed once in a while.
Totally. Absolutely.
But Leandro is being very nice and says it's going to be a great script. I believe it's going to be a great script. Totally. And I would approach it if I didn't.
I really like where we're going with it. So regardless, I'm having a lot of creative fun, a lot of creative joy in working on this thing. And ultimately, that's so much of what it's about too. Like, as a writer, and we've tried writing things that we don't like. And you can always tell. I feel like you can read something that someone's not really loved when they've written it too. Because you've got this is just. Wow.
But I think also, and you were saying, it's like, that's also part of this topic. It's like, try it.
Yeah.
Take that risk. Maybe you will love it.
Yeah.
Maybe
what the motto of the Special Air Service, the SAS in the UK is?
No.
He who dares wins.
He who dares wins. There you go.
Yeah.
So if you're out there and you've been trying to think, oh, should I write this particular type of way, or should I work this particular type of way? I've never done that before.
Yeah.
I feel a little nervous. Should I write TV instead of feature? Should I write a feature instead of TV? Try it. Take the risk, because you just don't know until you've done it. So that's our little. I mean, technically, that's actually less than 15 minutes.
It did very well. You did very well. But I think it's about taking risks, and ultimately, one could say you could extend that, couldn't you? And you could say not only are you taking a risk or trying something new, but also how can you do that stylistically?
Right.
What are stylistic choices that you might make to go, oh, you know what? I would never normally.
We've done that.
We've absolutely done that. I mean, we did that with the early draft of The Princess. The first draft of The Princess, the early draft, the draft that went on sale was entirely told from her point of view.
It was totally new.
On every single page.
And we were like, this is a risk.
Yeah, and it was a risk.
This
and it
could totally not work.
Yes, and it was not the way that it was end up shot and made.
They changed it, but man, it made for a good read.
It did.
It made for a good read. The princess was on every page.
Even when you were learning other information, you were all learning it from her point of view.
She was behind a wall. She was listening around a corner. She was looking down into the courtyard.
Totally.
It was awesome. I loved it.
Yeah, totally.
And we did a lot of things in that script that we'd never done with action before. We were like, you know what? We want to write an 8-page long action sequence or whatever.
Totally. And here's the thing, like, you might go and see a movie and go, that didn't work for me.
Yeah.
But I'm really glad they took the risk. There was a very big movie out a few years ago that I was like, this storytelling device did not work for me, but I appreciate what they were trying to do. You know?
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So it does.
Yeah. I think it's important. And it also makes, if it's a creative risk, then I think it has the potential to make you stand out of the crowd.
Yeah.
And if it's a craft risk, then it has the potential for you to learn something new, whereby you go, wow, I can actually be a better writer, or a more prolific writer, or, a more collaborative writer.
Yeah. It was interesting to talk to Dave the other day about how we might have several scripts on the go at any one time. We did an interview the other day with our friend. Dave.
Yes, go back and watch that. It's great.
Yeah, it's excellent. But he was saying he might get stuck on one script and go, I'm just going to put that down for the afternoon and work on something else. And you go, wow, I don't do that. But what if I did?
Right. I mean, it's a little easier, I guess, when you're working on your own. But in theory, we have other projects that we can work on.
Absolutely.
And we kind of do, but not usually multiple scripts.
Right.
We'll have a pitch that we can go to, or we'll have a
here. Although it's cold outside, my central heating is on. I'm getting all
warm. So, one of the things I was thinking of over lunch, Jake, is that as we were talking about this trying new things and this new method of working, part of what we were talking about was, is there a way to even apply that to outlining?
Yeah.
And so my question is, and I'm just going to raise it here, is do we want to try that live?
Oh.
I mean, I know it's a risk. Here's the positives that I see, and here's the negatives that I see. The positives is that we will not be having quite as many episodes where we just sit here and outline for you guys. Because you've watched us outline now, you know how we do it. The process is clear. And maybe we can get through it a little bit faster. The negatives are that, one, we won't have as many episodes because there's no reason to show up if we're not doing it together.
Yeah.
But that might not be a bad thing.
Sure.
And then also that we've never done it before, so it may not work.
Yeah. I think it makes me nervous because we've never done it before. Yeah. And I genuinely don't know what it is. I mean, I know one of the things that we were talking about was, for those of you who are interested in what as we were talking about what our process is going to be, I'm going to be starting to do first draft stuff, sending over to Ben, and Ben is going to be rewriting that first draft stuff. We talked about that for outlining too. Would we have a brief conversation? I would then go away, take that conversation, put it into some form, and then send that over to you. That's going to be the image on the cover. Send me this.
Well, look, we don't have to. It was just a thought that I had.
My additional question and query about it is I don't know what that would look like for our show.
Well, I think that because of various things that are going to be coming up in our lives, continuing even now, that it would probably mean fewer episodes, or episodes where we focus on, have an interview or do something else and not necessarily work on outlining. But I will say what we discussed from an outline perspective is that you might write that first bit of outline.
Yeah.
I might go and rewrite that outline, but undoubtedly we will still have to come back together to that outline.
Yes.
And so those episodes of us going through the outline and going, hey, I was looking at, for me, example, I was looking at this sequence that you were writing here, but I don't understand how we like this character.
Right.
And then we could still talk about that live.
Yes, we could.
And go through that.
Yes.
Again, it's like one of those things where I'm just going, do people really want to watch another 20 hours of us trying to crack the script?
I mean, it's a very valid question. It's a very valid question. So maybe it looks like this. Maybe it looks like this. Let's just talk it through. It looks like, and we've outlined our first two sequences, our first act.
Yeah, for sure.
We've set everything up. We've then added the complication, and then we're now on the road.
And we've talked a little about the structure moving forward.
We've talked a little bit about the structure moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and even as we were talking about earlier, I was going, what the conversations about structure and outline, me going away and outlining and going scene A, scene B, scene C, I think would involve those structural conversations with regarding the, let's call it 8-sequence structure.
Yeah, the heavy lifting, I do think, needs to be done together.
This is what's going to happen in this 10 to 15 page sequence. They're going to start here. This is going to be the complication, and this is how it ends there.
And look, the reality is too, I mean, the more I think about it, the more we talk about it, I go, I'm not sure that for an outline that this necessarily is more efficient. Because right now, as we do it, we just write it as we're talking about it. And those same questions are coming up. So would it just divide it into now 3 segments of outlining instead of just 1?
Yeah, maybe. I hear it.
I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Guys, we're literally trying to figure out how to write while we're on a live stream.
Write a screenplay.
What are we doing? Well, I think let's think about it, but we're gonna move.
Yeah, let's think about it. That's fine.
We're gonna continue to push forward and talk. Yes. There's a lot to figure out in this Act 2 structure.
Yes.
We have some really great. We've created a fantastic setup. I love the setup of the movie.
I do too. I do too.
And I love the climax of Act 1 that's going to bring us into Act 2, and now we're in Act 2.
Yep.
And what we left yesterday talking about, was this kind of big thing of how does this movie turn at the midpoint? What is the change of direction? Or if it's not plot related, character related, what is the big turning point that happens whereby things change?
Yes.
And we were talking about Terminator 2, about how they decide to, we're not going to run. We're actually going to go and we're going to take down Skynet before it's even created. And
it's interesting. I'm just kind of observing something in that. It's really interesting that for the longest time, Sarah Connor has been so fearful and afraid of this thing, the Terminator, someone who comes to assassinate you before you do the deeds that are going to cause the future to happen. And what does she become when she decides to go and kill Miles Dyson? She becomes a Terminator.
Yeah.
And I've never thought about that before, but that John goes, no, not only can you not go and kill this man because it's wrong, but you can't do it because it goes against everything that you fundamentally believe is wrong.
Right.
You know, and stops her just in time, like just in time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Just
that
as
is
you were talking about it, I was like,
she
my gosh,
becomes the Terminator. She's going to stop Dyson before he creates Skynet.
Yeah.
Like
Anyway.
the exact same thing that Arnie was sent to do
all those years ago. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Not fully related, but kind of related. Tangential.
Well, what we were talking about was this idea that Sam in ours is going to be this bringer of darkness to the world, but that she's not there yet. And that there might be a way, or that there should be a way for her to come back from the darkness, for the mark of Cain to disappear from her body in a visual sense. And so we were talking about, is there a sacred site somewhere whereby they have to go? And the question was, is it a real place? Is it a fictional place? Do we do something fun and maybe like, funny about like where it could be? Do we just create this mythical pool in the Amazon somewhere? Do we go to a religious holy site? I mean, there's lots of different things you could do. What I like about this direction, although we don't have it solid yet, is that when they make that choice, it puts a ticking clock on the villains. They have to stop them before they get to the pool.
Absolutely right.
Now,
say again.
I was going to say our darkest moment, at least for right now, is that the villains actually get her. Right. So then the ticking clock is flipped, whereby our heroes have to rescue her before the demons make her turn into the Antichrist.
Yeah.
So I think what's cool about it is that starting at the midpoint, there's always a ticking clock, which is a good thing to this to a movie.
Yes, I think so too. By ticking clock, of course, we mean the old image you have of the old clock connected to 3 sticks of dynamite.
Egg timer.
Then and it's ultimately is, if you do not do this thing by this time, X will happen. It is the damsel in distress tied to the railway tracks as the 310 to Yuma is coming. Not that happened in 310 to Yuma, but as the train is coming by.
Well, we get the example.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
So and they're good because they add very concrete stakes and give a very definite time whereby you either win or you lose.
It's neither. The movie's not ambiguous at that point. It's we know what's at stake, and we know what needs to happen.
Now, what becomes interesting though, and where it might not work with this is there is no solid when she's going to become the Antichrist. It's not she's going to happen at midnight on Friday.
No, but we're being hunted. There's no solid when for when the Terminator needs to kill Sarah Connor.
This is true. There's no real ticking clock in Terminator.
Well, the ticking clock is we have to do this before he gets here.
Right.
We have to get the thing from Cyberdyne.
Yeah, in Terminator 2.
Before the T-1000 shows up to stop us, because we can't stop him.
Right.
Right. So in this case, for example, if we go, okay, you, Sam, I mean, look, we could create a ticking clock, and I have an idea about that, but I don't know that it's needed. I think it actually complicates it more. But anyway, start here. You, Sam, if you do one more pure evil thing, a la take a life or something along those lines, you will become the bringer of darkness. You will become the Antichrist. And so me, Charlize, and you, Hank, we are going to bring you to the one place on Earth whereby we can reverse this process. Zod, demon, goes, I can't let that happen. And so I'm coming after you. And so we have to get there before Zod gets to us, is basically what that is.
Yeah.
So that is the forward thrust. That is the engine is one, you're really close to being the Antichrist. Two, there's demons coming after you. And we can't necessarily just keep fending them off over and over and over again. We have to get you to the place in which we can reverse this process. The other option would be that we create our own mythological ticking clock, whereby, a la Back to the Future, the longer this goes on, the mark of Cain will continue to form on her body, and when it is finished, she will be the Antichrist. The problem is I find it a little complicated in terms of why and
here's
what
the thing
about her. I understand her needing to do an action. I don't understand it just automatically happening.
I kind of feel like from a mythological standpoint, a lore standpoint, we can create whatever we want.
Yeah, of course.
What I like about it is the very clean simplicity of it. If you don't do this thing by Sunday afternoon at 3:30 p.m., the Antichrist is going to rise, and you're with her. This girl here has the zombie virus, and if you don't find the cure by 4 p.m. on Tuesday, she's going to be fully zombie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would actually put a real clock on it. I think it'd be before the image fully forms. Sure. And I don't think you need to know.
Yeah, sure. It doesn't have to.
You just have to feel urgency.
Sure.
Yeah. We don't know. In fact, there's more urgency if we don't know when you're going to become a zombie. I mean, that's one of the fun things about zombie movies is you get bit and you go, how long is it going to take you to turn? You know, there's an anticipatory anxiety that comes with that. Will we be too late?
Right.
But then what I need, okay, if that was the direction that we were going to go, and you go, okay, the mark has begun to form, I would need the thing that causes her to become the Antichrist to have already happened. The action that she takes to become the being of ultimate. Like, how do you reverse that if she's already gone to the darkest place possible? What I understood about the mythology that we'd created up until this point was that only by taking a human life could she fully come into the dark side of the Force and thus become Darth Vader. If we stop her from doing that, we win. If she does that, we lose. In this version, the demons, let's say Zod gets her at the end, or in the darkest moment, oh, we've captured Sam. Okay, everybody, set your clocks. All we have to do is wait.
Yeah, I don't know that that structure is going to work with what we're talking about. But luckily,
well, in that version it wouldn't work, but it would work in the first version.
Yes, it works in the first version.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with the first version.
Yeah, I mean, I think trying to make it the best version it can be, I go, well, what's the best version it can be? Not necessarily what version works with what we have. You know, so I'm just approaching it going like, is there just a very clean and simple this by then? And again, I don't think necessarily needs a ticking clock. It needs to be done by Friday at 2:17 in the afternoon. But if it is,
but you hear what I'm saying in terms of like she would have to have already done the deed.
Yes, I agree.
And then I go, is she redeemable to us as an audience?
Sure. Well, what was coming to mind as you were talking about that was, does she kill the guy in the bar?
But then is she redeemable? I mean, like when someone takes an innocent person's life, which if he's not innocent, then I don't think it counts.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like if he was a sleazeball who was
she's becoming the Antichrist. She can't do something that is redeemable. That's the point. You know? She can't, like, it can't be justified, or that's not Antichrist behavior.
That's not Antichrist behavior.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm talking about.
No, I hear that.
So,
I do hear that. Yeah.
So
yeah.
if it's about now, that being said, just coming to my mind, if a la the zombie metaphor, she were to start getting darker and darker and darker and darker, becoming more and more evil, becoming more and more the Antichrist, starting to almost like the evolution of like the girl in The Exorcist, like
Right.
slowly over the course of Act 2, the mark of Cain is glowing, and she's starting to do like her instincts are starting to become more evil.
Yeah.
That could be interesting, because then I go, okay, you're gonna turn, like you're a werewolf and you're gonna turn, and if I don't do this until that time,
right,
there is no alternative. Like
right,
like we're done.
right.
Now, I would say that that you're reading an email and you can wait. We just got a work email, but it's okay. So I think that there's something cool about that, but then I almost go, okay, so then I want her to be innocent at the beginning.
Right.
So then the journey becomes a girl who, well, maybe her just being a drug addict is enough, because she needs to have an arc, but I don't want her to be, I want the mark to be the thing that's starting to turn her evil.
Yeah.
I want the demonic energy to be turning her evil, to be consuming her.
Yes.
Not her
yearns to be
in
good.
that version. And I like it. And
Yeah.
it's like, we're going to, at a certain point, they have to like handcuff her because she's going to fucking do something awful, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
But like, we'd have to figure out now, going back to Act 1, how to establish this girl who, because of the death of her family, has been pushed to the brink, and there's enough demonic energy around this girl whereby it's begun. Now, I'll just kind of pull back 30,000 feet again and say, we could also, because we're creating all this mythology from the very beginning, right?
Yeah.
We could also say that this act of the demons, the terrorist act of the demons, created a level of demonic energy in the world whereby the mark of Cain and the Antichrist would start to rise. And it wouldn't be specific to what she's done, but rather her lineage.
Right.
It's a little bit far-fetched.
Yeah.
I mean, what it is it's more Neo, right? It's like, why is Neo the one? I don't know.
Yeah,
there's no reason.
There's no reason ever given why he's
curious
the one.
about the Matrix, but he's not like he hasn't done anything to be the one. He just is the one.
Just is the one. Totally.
So it would be something more along those lines of going, we found her. We know we finally, after 1,000 years, found the descendant of Cain, and we've killed her family as a way to it's like the trigger. We've triggered the change. It wasn't anything about her. It was that we triggered the change. And by triggering the change, now you've got 48 hours before she turns into the Antichrist.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting. Well, they knew who she was. But here's the question.
No, it's okay.
What needs to change?
Well, the whole Sam story needs to change.
Why? I'm just asking that
question.
Why
would it be the way that it is?
Well, here's the thing. They knew who she was. They were going to blow up the bridge.
Have they been fucking with her this whole time, then, you're thinking?
No, not necessarily. But, yeah, I'm going to have to really, maybe it does require more.
I think we really need to think about what is Sam's arc in this new version.
Yeah.
Why?
So this is going. I'm just going to say what this. Let's just look at the benefits of this version. The benefits of this version are it gives us a very clear idea about what's going to happen over the rest of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
She's slowly becoming more the Prince of Darkness, and we need to stop it by a certain time.
Right.
Whether that's the mark on her shoulder or you've got 24 hours.
I like the visual representation of the mark.
Totally.
I do.
Totally. And it's interesting
it's
because going back
Weaver in Ghostbusters.
Say again?
Sigourney Weaver in Ghostbusters.
Right. But going back to our early conversations when it comes to Midnight Run, there's just a very clear idea of we need to do this thing by this point, and I'll know whether or not we've won or not, because
that's true. I mean, and originally we talked about the first Terminator as the comp as well, and in the first Terminator, it is literally just we're on the run until we win.
Yeah.
And there is no real turning. There's an emotional turning point.
Yes.
Where Sarah accepts what's happening to her.
Right.
But other than that, there is no plot turning point. The Terminator is coming and we keep running.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, Sarah actually goes to Reese and helps him escape. And then they go on the run together. And her acceptance is the turning point of that movie.
Yeah.
So we can come up with a different version. Now, here's another thing that I will say in terms of just trying to make sure that we're doing the best version possible as well.
Yeah.
In this version, if she's going to slowly become the being she's like turning into the Exorcist. She's like turning into basically turning into a demon, right?
Sure.
Which is interesting. Like the energy of Cain is taking over her body.
Right.
Is there a moment then in Act 3 where she's totally changed and it's up to Hank and Charlize to reverse her without killing her?
Maybe.
And does that become too big? Like I start to think of like the Mummy, the Tom Cruise Mummy. Like in terms of size and scope, and like I don't want this movie should not be that.
Yeah.
It should be more 28 days later, like as we we're talking about earlier.
I lean towards no, because I feel like the quote unquote premise that we've created, that we've been exploring, is it's a chase movie.
Yes.
It's a road trip chase movie whereby we're trying to get to C by Y.
So then at the end, it's literally they've found us, they're here, they're going to get her, and it's just a against the clock. She's turning, it's almost too late. We finally defeat Zod and throw her in the magic pool, and we win in the final seconds.
I think
is what it is. And the forward thrust of the movie doesn't have it's not a hero's journey structure. And that's okay. Yeah,
and I think that's okay. I think, of course, absolutely okay. For sure.
I mean, and you could say that there could still be there is still kind of a dark night of the soul in the Terminator, but it's not to the extreme of a lot of other hero's journey movies. It's literally just like Reese is injured. Uh-oh.
Right.
It's not like there's no death that happens in that part of the movie. I mean, if you really wanted to go there, and again, it's not hero's journey structure, but it's the moment that Reese dies, like fully dies, is really the darkest moment of that movie.
Right.
And really what happens in that, like, if you were going to structure it out into acts, from the moment Reese dies, Sarah picks herself up by her bootstraps and figures out a way to crush the Terminator in the fucking crusher machine.
Right.
And it all happens in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, sure. Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, that really is the darkest moment of that movie, is Reese's death.
Right.
So anyways, point being that we could do something like that. We could. You don't, as long as you know what you're doing, we've said this before, as long as you know that you're going against traditional Hollywood structure, it's okay, because you can observe, but I still need turning point. I still need obstacles.
Yes.
I still need escalation of stakes.
Unexpected things
I
happening.
can't let this part of the movie go on too long without changing something.
Totally.
And so we can do that.
Yes.
I'm open to that.
Yes.
But anyway, forgetting about Act 3 for a moment, what we've done now, ladies and gentlemen, we've gone back to Act 1.
Yeah.
What?
Just when I thought I was out of it, just keeps pulling me back in.
Just when we thought we were out. So yeah, we've got a bot leaving us.
Oh, my favorite.
Yeah, sorry, block user. Bye-bye. And the question is, and this is what we're talking about, is we're going all the way back now to Sam's arc. Because now what happens is that you have this girl who, it makes me think of the movie Wolf.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen it, but I really liked it when I saw it. I think I've seen it since like the late 90s.
It's fantastic. It's when it came out.
Yeah.
So he gets bit by a wolf early in the movie in Act 1.
Yeah.
And then over the course of Act 2, slowly is changing and becoming a wolf. And in the middle, he's kind of like a werewolf. And then in that particular mythology, they literally become wolves.
Yes.
But what's cool about it is that you're watching him change, and there is kind of a metaphor for what's happening to him. He's becoming more and more free, but also becoming more and more violent. I'd have to go back and rewatch it to see what his emotional arc is. If I remember correctly, he's very much about his work and busy and all things that are not like doesn't really have a romantic life or whatever. And then this changes him to the point where he falls in love, but then ultimately is free with nature. Sam, if she's going to go through a change into a demon, and that somehow by changing into a demon at the end, she is a new person who has found maybe maybe we don't have to change it, because maybe her arc is she doesn't appreciate life and hence she's a drug addict. And we just stick with the drug addict.
Totally.
And that by almost losing her life to being a demon, but at the end, she realizes that she was throwing her life away, and that the darkness of being a heroin addict is just as bad as being a demon.
I like that a lot. It's interesting, isn't it? It's almost like, what are you doing? Are you embracing life or are you embracing death?
Yes. And that this girl is so lost at the beginning, and that almost becoming the Antichrist is what helps her find herself.
Yeah, it's an interesting metaphor, isn't it? It's an interesting metaphor. Yeah.
I mean, that's cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
I like it.
Yeah, I do too.
That doesn't actually require a lot of Act 1 changes, interestingly enough.
Yeah, that was as you were suggesting, I was going, what is it? That's what I was asking. What does it really?
Well, it requires a reframing of thinking of her character.
Right.
So while it doesn't require the scenes structurally to be changed, it requires us to look at her through a different lens. She's not an evil person.
Sure.
She's not doing drugs because she's because she's dark and
sure. Yeah.
She's just someone who has given up on life.
Yeah, sure.
She's given up on life. It's so sad. Like, so many people who OD. There was just a really famous person that died recently. I don't know if it was a drug overdose, but I think it might have been. It was Nick Carter's brother, Aaron Carter. I don't know if it was a drug overdose.
Yeah, I don't know.
Forgive me if it was, if it wasn't. But there are so many musicians in history who have overdosed on drugs, and you hear about how they had kind of just given up on life, and that it was just life was just too hard. And so they would escape into drugs.
Yeah.
And so there's something interesting about, yes, life is hard, but you fight through it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
there's something interesting about maybe even taking that theme and that metaphor and applying it to Charlize and Hank, and what their journeys are.
That's
And the fact that, like, yeah, like maybe it's hard being a demon, but you can make a better, you do have control over your choices. You can make a better life for yourself.
Sure. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. There's definitely,
if we were going to be looking at like that kind of thematic thing, I'd want to go, she doesn't yet live with her boyfriend. Her boyfriend's like, will you come and move in? Look, Cassie likes you. You know, you'd be a great mom. No, I'm just not there yet. And then in the end, we'd see her move in. You know, or Hank has an estranged relationship with his daughter, hasn't spoken to her in 7 years. And in the end, like, are there ways to...
I think I would see... Because I don't see this person who's a drug addict being in a relationship with someone who has a daughter and is all sweet, and that's a good thing.
No, I mean, Charlize's character.
Oh, okay. Sorry, we were talking about Sam.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, okay, in all other characters too.
In the other characters, yes, I see what you're saying. So it would be coming,
just a kind of general thematic thing.
I mean, maybe it's not about moving in. Maybe it's that he wants her to marry her.
Maybe, sure.
And
maybe.
she said no.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't
think. Don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure either.
I don't know. I don't. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
I'm not 100% sure on that yet. But it's definitely
definitely a possibility.
Definitely a possibility. I do think with Hank, we're missing, just as you bring that up there, we're missing a little depth with Hank.
Emotional depth. I agree.
Yeah, we're missing.
He needs a something. He needs a something.
Like, I don't know what Hank's arc is.
Yeah.
Like, what is his problem? I mean, we said that he used to that he was
a demon hunter now.
He was raised by, what's that?
He was a demon hunter and now, but I mean, he's kind of still isn't he, in this version?
He is. Yeah. Now he is. He was raised by we said he was like, you know, he had a Ramirez style demon hunter who raised him and taught him how to be a demon hunter, and he's taken on the mantle and is now demon hunting.
Right.
Is it also about life? Maybe he has no life either.
Totally. Maybe
his entire existence has been about demon hunting. And do we see someone come into his grocery store and ask him to go out and like go get some beers after work, and he's like, no, I'm busy. I mean, is it something kind of just like not so crazy on the nose?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Maybe, you know, to make it interesting, like,
yeah, just exploring.
Maybe Hank's gay. And maybe part of it too is that he hasn't embraced his truth, his life, because he's been so about it. And it's not like, oh, I'm in the closet. It's not something he talks about, and he doesn't go out and hang out with people, and he doesn't date.
Right. Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
And there's a guy who is like, you should come out with us.
Yeah.
You know?
Maybe. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so all this said then, what does it look like now moving forward?
So now moving forward, we're still saying, what's the midpoint? Right. Yeah. That's a good question now. So we were talking about how the emotional midpoint turn in the Terminator was her acceptance of what's going on, and that that's not going to happen. I mean, she's going to have to start to change earlier than that.
She's going to have to start. There's going to be. Is it the mark has started to grow in 2.1, but at the midpoint, she really starts to hug her behavior.
But what does that change about our mission?
I don't.
How does that change the path of the movie?
But again, interesting, coming back to something like Midnight Run, the path of the movie. Well, interestingly, the path of the movie does change in Midnight Run,
and so it kind of does in Terminator 2.
It stops becoming, I'm just going to get you back by Friday at midnight. Now we're going to try and take down the bad guys.
Right. And in the Terminator, what do? They go and get a bunch of things to make.
So in what way can we be going, we were just trying to do this thing,
Right.
Now instead we're gonna try and stop the bad guys. But again, it's going to what
But
is
it's
that
not about going
thing?
back to the bad guys. It's about changing our. It's almost like an emotional shift of we're going to take control now. Is there something about, like, here's what I would say would be interesting in our movie. I'll just pitch our movie for a second.
Yeah.
We're on the run in 2.1. We know we have to escape Zod. We know she's turning. How are we going to get her to stop turning? We don't know. The midpoint is when we discover the location of the place whereby we can set her free. And then that shifts the movie to now we have a specific location. We're on the run, and now we have an active place to go.
Mm-hmm.
That would be one version of that kind of midpoint change.
Yeah.
To go, we're looking for a solution. We find the solution, but the solution is in Africa.
Yeah. Okay. So 2.1, we're on the run. Midpoint, we find a solution.
Right.
Great. I like that.
Yes.
I like that.
Darkest moment, Hank dies.
Yeah. But he sacrifices himself, so it's kind of honorable, but also sad.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But really, it's like, and then in the she's like slow. She's like becoming the full-on Antichrist. The demonic energy is forming. The rift is kind of starting to happen. I don't know how we get away with all these special effects in a $40 million movie, but we'll figure it out.
Sure, we'll
and
figure it
then, just in the nick of time, we stop it.
Yeah. I think that's right.
So it's a very simple. It's okay. It's actually
I do think it's okay.
Simple structure.
And again, it comes down to one of the things that we talked quite a lot about.
The complex characters.
Simple story, complex characters. Got to get to this point by this point, but you're difficult.
Yeah.
It's messy. You're messy.
Yeah, and having Sam with them is going to become harder and harder and harder and harder.
Right.
What does that change look like? What does that evolution look like? She is becoming the Antichrist. She is becoming the carrier of the mark of Cain. We will have to kind of go into like the stages of that.
Totally.
So that we can slowly see this devolving of Sam from a person who is trying to get her shit together and going to NA meetings to
becoming
like full on exorcist out almost, or at least Gozer,
At least Gozer, sure.
She becomes Gozer at the end.
Right. Yeah.
I actually like the image of that Gozer. She'd be a great Antichrist.
Gozer make a great. I'll say she's available.
Yeah. She's like, but there's something about like the way that they did that with like the makeup and the costume the way she moved that you were like, ooh, she's like demonic, and yet they didn't use any special effects for her whatsoever.
No, totally. Yeah.
But they
did for the demon dogs.
Yes, they did for the demon dogs.
Some of the best stop motion mid 1980s.
Loved those dude. I loved those demon dogs.
Yeah, it was cool to see them do it again in the new one.
I know it was cool.
It
was. Do you know that when Gozer shows up in the new one too? Yeah, was it the same actress?
No, it was Olivia Wilde.
No, really?
Yep.
Wouldn't have known that.
Yeah, you wouldn't have known that, but
no.
Olivia Wilde. Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Well,
we're at an hour. I mean, I know we didn't get any writing done, but we did get ideas done. A lot
of work done.
So yeah.
Well, we do have a question. We'll answer the question before we end.
Snuck him right there, right at the last minute, Chris. We're gonna get this one in.
So, follow-up question from episode 30. I'll put it on the screen so that everybody can read it. Follow-up question from episode 30. When your reps put together a package, do they tend to steer attachments to clients, their agency reps? Also, at this point in your careers, how much clout do you have to influence the package process? For example, who it goes out to?
So the first part, yes, they are going to try to put as many elements from their agency onto your movie. Yeah. Because it makes them look good in staff meetings.
No, because,
but also, you know,
they don't work for you. They work for
they don't work for you. They work for the agency, and that's the thing. It's what we really have to remember. And ultimately, as well, you may think that they're going to be making much more commission off an actor and a director than they are off you, a writer.
Yeah, totally. But you know, it also depends on the project. So, if you have a producer that is not repped at your agency, and they're doing a lot of the packaging, yes, they'll work with your agents. It's much easier to go internal. I mean, packaging, it's one of the reasons to be at a big agency.
I mean,
is because you have access to that talent.
Our script right now that's going out, 40 Thieves, we're repped by UTA, has a UTA actor and a UTA director.
Yeah, and there's a reason that you otherwise why be a small fish in a giant pond if you don't think you want to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
But that being said, we have another project where the producer doesn't need UTA, and so he doesn't care about whether the people that we're trying to package are UTA clients. He's going for the people that he wants to go for, and he has the ability to do that.
Yeah.
So to answer the second part of your question, interestingly enough, at this point in our career, the clout that we have is more about being able to work with people who have the ability to package better people.
Yes.
So we're not calling up A-listers or
even be able to say, no, we want this person instead.
Right.
But we do have the clout to be able to connect with that producer who could then go outside of our.
So in the screenwriter's world, the clout that you really are looking for until you really hit a high level, the clout that you're looking for is that producers who are of a much higher level want to work with you.
Yeah.
So that is the level, thankfully, that we're at, where wonderful producers who we're very blessed to be working with want to work with us. They have the ability to then go to high level people. So when we have a conversation about packaging with our producer, we can say, hey, what about going to Charlize Theron? And he'll go, I'll text her right now. I mean, literally.
And that happened.
Yeah. So that's where we're at, but that has nothing to do with us at all or our agency. On another project where our producer doesn't have that ability, our agency took the lead on packaging. Yeah. So it's both. And we're very fortunate to be at the point right now where we have the ability to do both.
Indeed.
Yeah. So I hope that answers your question, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for asking the question.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
All right, let's get out of here.
Great. All right, everybody. Well, we'll see you tomorrow. And again, just an announcement so that everybody is excited and ready. Friday, 11 a.m. Pacific time, Derek Kolstad, creator of the John Wick franchise, and Nobody, will be here with us. He produced The Princess. He's an amazing screenwriter, and he's going to talk to us about his process on this podcast. Live. So come, make sure you join us. Set your calendars. 11 a.m. Friday morning, and hopefully he doesn't cancel. Bye, guys.
Thanks.
All right.